All right, the fourth unit will be with measurement. So a little bit of review before we begin. Let's begin with the metric system, which is, by the way, also called the SI system, which stands for System International. That's French for International System of Measurement. You don't need to know that. We call it the metric system. Okay, let's do a quick review of the metric system and how to make conversions between the different units. Okay, so start here with A. 65 kilometers, how many meters? This chart up here is useful for figuring out conversions. Okay, so it says 65 kilometers. Let me write that here. And I want to end up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow these arrows, and I go back 3 times. And when I go back 3 times, I am multiplying by 10 3 times. So this would be 65,000 meters. Okay, so we can use this chart every time. In fact, I might put it on my cheat sheet if I were you. Let's do the next one. 1,200 meters goes here, and I want to end up here. So this time I have to follow these arrows. And this time, instead of multiplying by 10, I'm dividing by 10. If I divide by 10 3 times, I get 1.2. Okay? So go ahead and try a few of these. It's as simple as writing the number and the square that it belongs to, and then looking how far do I need to go to get to the next square. So in this case, I'm going to multiply by, oh, I made a mistake there. It's 400 dm, small d. Okay? Oh, pen's dying for a second. Wait 1 minute. Okay, so yeah, the funny thing is we never use those measurements. The D with a capital D is deca, the small d is deci. And I don't think we've ever used those, so it's kind of strange that we're actually making conversions, but go ahead and do it anyway. So this is going to be 40. Okay, and going through the rest of these, I'll get you to pause right now and I'll put the answers down. I would like you to try them, see if you can do them on your own. Okay, because you will need to make these conversions. All right. Number 2, circle the greatest measure. So out of these 3, 12 kilometers is the biggest. 10.9 grams is the biggest. Half inch is the biggest. And decimal 1 centimeters is the biggest. Okay, let's round each measurement, so some more rounding. So it says in the first one, to the nearest tenth of a unit. The tenth is the first decimal, so I see that the 5 is enough to round it up. Okay, to the nearest 10, that's where the 6 is. So if I look at the 4, that's not enough to round it up. Okay, to the nearest tenth, so this is the tenth, so I would have 42.4, and then to the nearest hundredth, that's to here. This is a little trickier. I'm going to go 42 point, now the 3 would be there, the 9 would become a 10, but I don't write 10. What I'm going to do is put 0 and put the 4 here. Okay, if you just want to pause the video, try each of these, then come back. I have the answers here. The only thing I would tell you is in each of these cases you should probably write the units in. Okay? So don't just copy it down. It doesn't do you any good. I'd like you to pause the video and see if you can fill all of these in. Okay, I'll try a few of these in class with you and make sure that if you have questions about them that you're asking. Okay, next one. A little review from way back when. How do we add, subtract, and multiply and divide fractions? Okay, well, to add and subtract, you need a common denominator. That's the only time you need a common denominator, so don't do it for multiplying. Okay, so 8 and 16, a common denominator would be 16. So that fraction doesn't change. This one, what did I multiply the 8 by to get 16? I multiplied by 2, so I'm going to multiply the top by 2 as well. And then how do I add them? I add the tops. The bottom stays the same. Okay. Common denominator for this one will be 32. I did not change the first fraction. The second one I multiplied by 2. So if I subtract, I get 9 over 32. Okay, now the next two are multiplication. I do not need common denominators. You should just multiply the top, so 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 12 is 48. Okay, here we have 2 and 36. And I don't expect you to do this, but if you recognize, you can reduce this fraction. Okay, if I can divide the top and bottom by the same number. All right, but it's not compulsory that you do that. If you miss it, you're not going to be penalized. Okay, next, some formulas. Do we remember some of these formulas? Perimeter, area, volume, things like that. Okay, first of all, if you're decorating a bedroom and you want to know how much wallpaper you need, the length of the wallpaper border, okay, just the border, this is perimeter. P is perimeter. If you think about perimeter, it's just the distance around the shape. Okay, so in this case, it says the room is 4.4 meters and 3.8 meters. And if I want to know what the perimeter is, I can use that formula, or I could just add up the 4 sides. Okay, in this case, there are 2 of each of these. Okay, and that's going to be 16.4 meters. By the way, if you use the formula, it would be 2 times 4.4 plus 3.8. This is going to give you the same thing. Okay, again, I don't care which way you do it. Whatever you remember learning, whatever you want to do. Okay, area, you just multiply the dimensions, length times width. So in this case, it's going to be 4.4 times 3.8. If I multiply that, I get 16.72. 72 what? Meters squared this time. Okay, because it's area, and I've multiplied meters times meters. Okay, meters times meters is meters squared. All right, let's see if you remember Pythagoras. A skateboard ramp runs along is 3.5 meters long, the ground, and 2 meters high. How long is the ramp? Okay, so putting these into Pythagoras, remember that the long side is always across from the 90-degree angle, so that's going to go where C is, and then the other 2 are A and B, and it doesn't matter what order we do that in. Okay, so you end up with 16.25 is x squared, and to get x, we take the square root of both sides. Okay, so take the square root of both sides here, and the square root of 16.25 is pretty close to 4 centimeters, meters. Okay. Cylindrical water storage tank is 10 meters high and 5 meter radius. So what does that tank look like? Well, here is a cylinder. Okay, it says it's 10 meters high, and the radius, so from the middle to one of the sides, is 5 meters. Okay. What's the capacity? Another word for capacity is volume. Okay, and the volume is pi r squared h, so you just have to know what's what. The radius is 5, the height is 10, and if I put that in my calculator, I get 785.398, which we will round off to a whole number. And this time it's meters cubed because I'm multiplying meters times meters times meters. Okay, A water truck is used to fill the tank when it is empty. The water truck has a capacity of 4,000 gallons. How many truckloads of water are needed to fill the tank? Well, the problem is we don't have the volume of the tank in gallons. We have to change that. Okay, it says that 1 cubic meter is 219 gallons. So to figure out how many gallons we have, I'm going to take 785 meters cubed, all right, and I'm going to try to figure out how many gallons is that. Okay, so what we need to do here is do a ratio. Okay, I know that 1 meter cubed is 219.97 gallons. And so I want to know, how do these compare? Okay, if I have 785 meters compared to 1, then how many gallons is that compared to 219? Okay, now maybe that doesn't make sense to you. Maybe you remember doing this in grade 10. Well, let's just compare 1 meter cubed to 219.97 gallons. There's our comparison that we're given. And now what we want to do is figure out, well, what are we figuring out? We're figuring out how many gallons is 785 meters cubed. Okay, so in this case, we have the meters cubed on the top, and we have the gallons on the bottom. Okay, whatever works for you, you're going to get the same answer. So what we're going to do here is cross multiply. You get x is, and 219 times 785 turns out to be, well, a pretty big number. So this many gallons. Okay, now the question said, how many trucks does it take to fill that tank? Well, let's divide this by 400 gallons. Okay, so we'll divide, by 4,000 gallons. And this will tell us how many trucks it will be. So this is 43.169 trucks. Now, what do I do there? 43.169. Can you have part of a truck come? So the question here is, can I do this in 43 trucks, or does it take 44 trucks? Well, I hope it makes sense that 43 trucks would not quite fill it. I will need that 44th truck to come, even if it's with only part of the water. So what I'm going to say is I need 44 trucks. Okay, next we'll talk about Imperial. Here's the weird thing. We always talk about metric system, but the reality is in Canada we still use the Imperial system a lot. See, back in the 60s and 70s we had only the Imperial system, and then Canada decided to change to the metric. And the Imperial system is still hanging around. And one of the reasons for that is the U.S. still uses an Imperial system. The funny thing is, many of their measurements are different than ours. Their gallon is different than our gallon. Okay? So yes, they'd use an Imperial system, but it's not exactly the same as ours. Can you think of a place where you would for sure use Imperial? Probably the most common is with building materials. For example, if you go into a store and you ask for a 2x4, I don't know if you know what a 2x4 is. Piece of wood. Okay. For building, these might be 8 feet long, and this is called a 2x4. It's 2 inches by 4 inches. Actually, it's not even 2 inches by 4 inches. Once it's been plain smooth, it actually turns out to be 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. But it's called a 2x4, and this is all Imperial. Okay, so we still do use Imperial a lot. And these conversions are a little tougher, okay, because they don't just multiply or divide by 10. Okay, but we can still use this chart. So I want 26,400 feet, and I want to change it to miles. So what do I have to do? If I want to go this way, I'm going to divide by 3. And then I'm going to divide by 1,760. Okay, and if I do that, I end up with 5 miles. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, let's try this one. So these are all feet to miles. You can try those. Pause the video right now. I'll tell you this one is 8 miles. See if you can get that. And if you do this one, this is 1 mile. Okay, so let's try the next one now. 36 inches, and I want to know how many feet. So to go this way, it says divide by 12. So 36 divided by 12 will give me 3 feet. Okay, 48 inches as feet. Try it. It's 4. Okay, 6 miles to feet. Well, that's a different one. So I have 6, and I want to go to here to here. So I'm going to multiply by 1760, and then multiply by 3. And this turns out to be 31,680 feet. Okay, so go ahead and try a few of these. Pause the video now. Okay, so that's the introduction to this unit. Lots of measurement going on. All right, if you had trouble with any of those, I would go back and try a few of those. Okay, and then we'll get to the next video.